Welcome to Mobile Music Thursday here on DJNTV. I'm your host, Jason Jones from the Entertainment Experience. This is the show where we explore what's working on the DJ dance floor and what is not. We talk about how to create sets, how to keep up on what's hot, and when to play it. Every week I feature a guest DJ who talks about what they're playing, their thoughts on music, what's working, and what's not. This week we talked to DJ, wedding entertainer, and former radio music director and host, as well as the creator of the Perfect Host seminars that have been seen at DJ conferences around the world. Yeah, if you haven't guessed by now, I'm talking about none other but Jim Cerone. And we're going to have Jim join us coming up in just a few minutes. First, let's take a look at what's changed on the music charts between downloads, most popular downloads, as well as top radio play, which is a pretty good measurement of what's popular in music. And there really hasn't been a lot of change. We still have the same top dogs as last week. Of course, Happy with Pharrell. Pharrell is still dominating with Happy. Katy Perry is still up there, as well as Lorde, the favorite wander around, sing along on the dance floor song. So Team is still charting and ranking really, really high. Jason Derulo is really holding a steady spot, not peaking out at the very top, but really holding out in the top 10 with his latest music as well. Interestingly enough, Selfie is on the rise in the top downloads. This song could be the song of the summer. We'll have to see. It sounds like it's trending that way. Right now it ranks at 21 on the American Top 40. It's now number 14 in downloads and keeps rising and rising. So we'll see if this is our Gangnam Style of the summer. We'll have to see. It's by a couple of DJs that go by the name of Chainsmokers, and they're out of New York. They're producers, songwriters, and the members are Andrew Taggart and Alex Paul. And the question is, are these two guys going to be the next LMFAO? Well, we'll just have to wait and see what holds in the future for Selfie. So now that we've got a scoop on the what's happening on the charts, let's go ahead and talk to our guest that I'm really excited to get on the show, none other but Jim Cerone. Well, Jim Cerone, great to have you on the show. It's really, really exciting to have you here, especially because I know, having you on the music show, you, to me, are like the musicologist. I don't know that I know of anybody who is more in tune in not just like what's current or working, but also what's trending. So I want to actually start our conversation off in that way. And the reason that I learned about this was actually from Jim Weiss at TM Century, where he shared a little story about you actually calling him asking for a clean version of my brain is going
Lines.
Blurred Lines, yes. And he's like, Blurred Lines, what? That? And you were like, this is trending, it's really coming, it's really getting hot. And he was like, oh, we haven't even discovered that yet. And so they were on it right away. And I'm like, well, here's a guy that is really, really in tune. So I'd love to start by you sharing a little bit so how do you do that? Because, that might be mysterious for a lot of folks.
Sure. Well, I was in radio as a music director for many, many years, and it was a thrill for me to open the mail every day. I knew that we were getting music 2-3 weeks, sometimes a month before the public, anybody would have the chance to hear it or buy it. And as the music director, I committed to listening to every single piece of music that came in the door.
Wow.
That was just a thrill for me.
That is a huge commitment because, I know I never held the music director slot at the radio station when I was in music radio, but I know there was stacks of CDs that would come in every day. So about how much time did you devote each day to listening to all the music?
Just about all day. As the music director, you're programming every song on the station at that time by computer. And while I was on the computer, I would when I first started, I would pick up the needle, take off that 45, put down the next 45, and just continue to listen. And we always had a tall stack and a short stack. So the tall stuff was every song that had come in. The short stack was the songs I thought might have some hit potential.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
So I kind of come by that, looking for the next hit naturally.
Sure. Is there at that time were there a lot of underdogs that just never got, kind of like this should really be a popular song and it never really took off? That became your favorites that are pretty much kind of still unknown at all?
There were a ton of those. I was a huge 80s music fan, and my library is littered with songs that I thought were going to be huge hits that never went anywhere. And the best lesson I got as a as a DJ doing mobile work
Uh-huh.
was from a program director at the radio station. There was a song called Ephraim Lewis, and it was Drowning in Your Eyes. And I thought, oh, this is such a great song. It's going to be a huge hit. And he said, it's too smart for the audience.
Oh, wow.
And then that made me kind of stop and go, well, yeah, I mean, the reason that Call Me Maybe and songs like that are huge hits is because you can sing along to it after you've heard it the first time. It's verse, chorus, a very simple song structure, and that's what makes a pop hit.
Well, and then that, like Call Me Maybe, I think probably has half a dozen at least hooks in the song after the first hook at the beginning. I mean, it's like hook. What they a guy that used to work in radio. I don't know if he works in radio anymore, but he introduced me to the term, and I don't know if you ever heard of this, a hook burger.
No, I hadn't heard that.
That's maybe it was just to his radio station or his era, because he came out of '70s radio, and songs like that it's like hook after hook after hook throughout the entire song. They used to call a hook burger because there were so many hooks that it was like hooky to the max, I guess. And I guess we should also clarify when we talk about a hook is it's that melody line or that string or that drop or whatever that music that just hooks you into the song, that like just pulls you in or gives you a little surge of excitement. Would that be a good description, do you think, or how would you describe it?
Definitely. And some songs have multiple hooks, as you said, because there's a musical hook, there's a string or a drum that catches your ear and repeats. The best lesson I learned was that if the song doesn't get to a hook within 45 seconds, so the first verse should be very short and you should get to the hook right away. If it doesn't get to the hook by 45 to 50 seconds, it's not going to be a hit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that makes sense. That even in my own taste of listening to a song, you kind of get bored. Like, this isn't going anywhere. Pull me in somewhere. And you wonder if musicians think about this ever when they're putting their music together. I mean, groups like LMFAO is like a group of DJs that started laying down tracks and putting together hits. And who better than club DJs to know like how to put in a hook and have a hook after hook after hook? That's their world. You wonder if have you ever talked to musicians or any musicians in terms of how their creative process?
Well, they all have a different way of doing it, and some it's conscious. They want to write pop songs. They want to write hooks. Others are more artistic, and it's funny that kind of battle. You love this band, and this happened a lot when I was in high school. There were all these friends of mine who were into indie bands. Oh, yeah. And then the band would get a hit, and they would abandon them. It was like, oh, they sold out. No, they didn't sell out. They're just finally making some money they can eat now. Exactly. Yeah, so it's no fun if they can eat. Then they become fat musicians, and who wants to watch fat musicians? The skinny, starved ones are the most interesting, right? Yeah. Well, and then, even talking about, how hooky songs, because there's also then the songs that burn really, really fast. Like, they come on, they're huge, they're really popular, and then they burn out. And then the reaction is more like, oh, stop playing that. And even they're even delayed in terms of coming up as a recurrent, meaning like they've been taken off the playlist for a while and then they're reintroduced. But they burned so much, so hot, so popular that the song kind of burns out. I'm trying to think of an example of this while I'm talking about it. It's funny. There are songs with staying power that will stick around and won't burn out. And there's others that just get aggravating. And a lot of times it's a song with a cold beginning. Mm-hmm. Those burn out faster than a song with an instrumental intro. And there's a life cycle to every song. And we could follow that. In radio, we would do call-out research. So every week we were constantly polling the listeners and saying, what do you think of this song? Are you tired of this? Do you want to hear this more? Right. And every song had a 12 to 16-week life cycle. So it would be released. It would make it to the top 30, and then some would make it top 10, some would make it top 5, some would make it to number 1, and then you would see them quickly start to drop off about 12 to 13 weeks. Mm-hmm. So there is definitely burnout as well, and you have to watch that on your dance floors, because sometimes you'll go to a song that you think is going to work, and you can see everybody's disinterested. Right, like faster than you would have expected for a song that seems like as popular as it is. Yep. But I have this process I go through every week, and you mentioned me contacting Jim Weiss at TM Studios. Every week, I pick up my latest copy of Entertainment Weekly, I look at the Billboard chart. I look at the iTunes chart from 1 through 100. There's a way that you can look at just the top singles on iTunes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my weekly ritual. I go through that, and I also check out the websites of local radio stations.
Oh.
So I look at WZPL in our market, which is the kind of long-lasting top 40 station. I look at WTTS FM. If you get a chance to check that station out, it's a great way to keep up with artists like Ray LaMontagne, Jack Johnson, Dave Matthews. It's alternative, but it's kind of like acoustic alternative. So it's a great way to find out what your brides and grooms or your clients might be following that's not necessarily top 40.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you're looking at, when you're looking at this broad spectrum of music, that you're looking at more than just what's going to hook on the dance floor. You're looking for your background music. You're looking for, kind of all those elements for all the moods, because there's a lot of moods to a wedding that you move through. Yes.
Absolutely. To me, cocktail and dinner music is essential. I could talk the entire broadcast about that, because that's the time that you earn the trust of the audience. You show them you're going to be playing something for everyone. You prove to them you have brand new songs. You have classic old songs. You're not playing any filler or songs they don't know. And you're controlling the tempo of the event. So cocktail hour is fun and happy. Dinner hour is romantic but not boring. And then you start to simmer the pot again as you get through dinner and begin dancing. So yeah, all of those times are essential to be playing music that's fresh, that's familiar, that's comfortable for people. It's a really important thing from the minute the first guest walks in until the last dance.
Yeah, that sounds like an hour conversation. I see a mobile music special coming on, just talking about cocktail and dinner music. Because I mean, a lot of times it's easy to just like, I just have a standard set of jazz or a standard set of whatever that you just like throw on during that time, kind of like as a filler to get to later when I play fun music. I mean, this is not an uncommon mentality, and I'm not putting anybody down if that's what you do, but there's a huge opportunity to be able to impact the room and the mood and all that with the music you play during other parts of the night.
Absolutely. I'm really passionate about that. Happy by Pharrell Williams is a great example. I did my weekly look at iTunes, and I saw this song start to come up. And we had seen the movie Despicable Me, which it's from. Yep. And I was aware of it, and so I started to stick it into Cocktail Hour. And at one event a couple weeks later, so this really follows how you can catch a song on the upswing. Yeah. A couple weeks later, somebody came up, and I had played it during cocktails, and she said, "Can you play? I heard you play it earlier. Can you play it again now?" And I didn't really think of it as a dance song to start with. But it evolved, and that's the great thing about doing that weekly ritual of looking at charts. And I just do that week in and week out, usually Tuesday or Wednesday. By then, the new songs have been released. And heading into an event that weekend, I know I've got everything, because I hate being stumped. I hate when somebody comes up and asks me about a song. I want to know them all and have them all. Right.
Well, and how much, like, for a typical wedding, how much brand new music, and when I say brand new, I guess I mean within the last 6 months that have been released and are charting in the top 30, how much of that do you include and play?
I think if you imagine a plate, if you're a balanced eater, you have your main dish, you have your starch, you have your sides. That's, to me, the proportion that you add new music in. New music is like the green beans or the salt and pepper. It's just a little bit added in once it's... you don't want to give somebody... I don't know why I'm on this food analogy. But if they don't like Brussels sprouts, you don't want to feed them a whole big plate of Brussels sprouts. Right. Maybe one or two they might tolerate. And that's the same kind of thing with new music. By watching the charts, you know what your local stations are playing and what people might be familiar with by now. And I have this concept of song sandwiches. So if you have a new song, you should always put it between two really familiar super hits. Oh, sure. So that if they do lose interest, then you lose a little bit of momentum with the new song, and just in case you do, then you're going to come out of it with a stronger hook. Yeah. And what's changed, Jason, in the last 5 years or so, we all used to listen to a top 40 station. That was Mom and daughter would listen to a top 40 station in the car. So you had mass appeal hits being made, and Party Rock Anthem is probably the last one of those that was really huge, that was used in TV commercials, that both the younger generation, the parents' generation, and the grandparents' generation, all three of those elements might know that song because it's gotten that much exposure. Well, that doesn't happen anymore because people don't listen to top 40 radio. We're not all listening to the same station and talking about it at school the next day. So you have to be even more cautious with what songs you play because they're not getting exposed in the general universe that much anymore to the people that are at your event.
Well, yeah, we talked about this on the show as well, with just the younger generation that's coming up, the teenagers and that sort of thing, that even on top 40, I'm hearing way more diversity in top 40 than I have ever in history. And I think it has a lot to do with that people are sampling their music in all kinds of different places through the internet. It's not that singular channel. There's not like a gatekeeper anymore. I would say a good example is Mumford and Sons. 20 years ago, I don't think Mumford and Sons ever would have made the top 40. It's like, that's not top 40 genre. That's not going to go in here. I mean, the gatekeepers would have squelched it even before it had a chance to come out and hook.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so difficult as DJs. I think our job is harder now than ever before because I used to ask my brides and grooms when they'd sit in my office, what stations do you listen to?
Right.
And I stopped asking that because they got the deer in the headlights look like, what's a radio station?
Right. Who listens to radio stations anymore?
And then I would say, well, what's on your iPod? And even that doesn't work anymore because
that's changing.
I think they're moving away from owning the music and they're using Pandora and Spotify and all these other places. So now I say, who do you start your Pandora playlists with?
Oh, yeah. Or what stations have you created around? Or what artists have you created stations around?
So it's evolving fast.
Yeah, I have... speaking of that, I've used Pandora to build a playlist for a client. I remember having a client saying, I love Sade, so if you could do my whole dinner music around Sade, that would be great. And I'm just like, first I'm like, no problem. Then I go home going, how am I going to do that? And I listen to Sade, I'm like, okay, I could think of maybe 4 or 5 artists just off of looking through my library to kind of match up to be kind of a similar style, similar feel, a texture that works together with that. And then I plugged it into Pandora and I'm like, oh yes, and I'm jotting down notes song after song. And granted, I'd hit some no, not so much, but I had this constant feed of here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea, which was just an incredible resource. I was so proud of the playlist that I put together. It's yeah, I'm a musicologist, I know everything. I'm not going to tell you my Pandora secret, but yeah. So
well, it's such a challenge because our clients have access to all the music that we do, and they're used to getting everything exactly the way they want it. When I was in high school, my best friend and I used to go out and he had a 69 Camaro that he had rebuilt, and we would just cruise around it. He loved McDonald's. I hated McDonald's because McDonald's at that time would pre-make the hamburgers and it had mustard, ketchup, pickles, onions, and I didn't want any of that stuff. I just like ketchup. Well, he'd always go to McDonald's. Well, that has changed now. The whole consumer structure, you can get exactly what you want immediately, and that's what our clients are used to. So we can't just have the top 40 anymore because they're not limited by the top 40. And because they're used to getting their way, they expect us to do it exactly the way they want it. So you have a situation like you and your Sade client where they expect you to create a list that fits with their favorite type of music and nothing else. Yeah.
Well, yeah, even Brian Redd, I caught one of his videos, and he was talking about how the challenge of where it used to be, we come in and we DJ, and we our expertise was we're going to take everybody on a musical journey, and there's a certain extent that they expect that they're going to hear familiar music, but they're also willing to ride the wave that the DJ creates if you're really programming your night, and playing and putting together really good sets that work and things like that, and taking them on a musical experience. And with the on-demand world, that it's like I experience more than ever now, where I'll play a song and a clear floor. And he'd be like, holy cow. And it's not even like a bad song. It's like a song I've viewed before. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta recover from that, you know. As you know, like playing an obscure request and or going into like a slow Led Zeppelin song, and everybody's like, oh, disinterested and going away. But even something like Current, and it's like there's much less willingness to say, well, I'm just going to kind of go along and see where this DJ takes me, and like, no, this doesn't interest me, and gone. And then like, oh, maybe I'll come back kind of thing, more so than in the past. Is that something that you've experienced, or am I just a terrible DJ?
No, you're absolutely correct. There is an impatience created by the fact that because you have DVR, you can skip commercials. You don't have to listen to or watch anything you don't want to anymore. Right. Where you and I grew up listening to the radio, we would pick one station and we would turn it on and we'd listen to that station for 4 hours. We didn't care what they played. We trusted them to guide us and to pick the hits. And, and there's no, all those shackles are off. And so there is this impatience. If you watch, Max Field's not old enough yet, but when your son gets older, watch kids with devices and them hitting skip on Pandora or Spotify within the first 15 seconds of a song they don't know or don't like. And it's the same thing on our dance floor. I used to, value the integrity of the song. This is an artist who created this, and, it's only 3 minutes. You've got to listen to it. 45 seconds in, 30 seconds in, 15 seconds in. If it's not working, then I fade out and I go to something else. And even songs they love. Somebody will come up and request a song, and you'll be playing it, and after the first verse and chorus, you can see them walk away from the floor. You requested it, but they're bored by it. So the attention span is so much shorter too. So we have to take all that into account. Right.
Well, and I think you answered my next question was like, how do you handle that? So you handle that just by playing, do you play less of every song that you play then? Or if a song is working, will you play it out and then another one play it shorter? I mean, how do you, what are you doing to manage that now? So this show is about solutions and not just about like all of our complaints as DJs. The world's changing!
Well, I certainly watch the dance floor more closely now. In the past, we would have to pick a song, start it, and then we'd turn to our vinyl or we'd turn to our CDs and we'd search for the next song because we figured, okay, I know this one, the dance floor was hopping and this song looks good. We don't have that luxury anymore. I think we have to be constantly heads up. You have to kind of be able to search with one eye on the dance floor and one eye on your computer screen. So yeah, I definitely will shift out of a song if it's not working much more quickly than I used to.
So does this make this, the elements of beats per minute and energy, like building your energy, building your beats per minute, or if you drop down to something that's a much slower beats per minute that isn't a slow dance song, that you're going to go into something that has higher intensity with a lower beats per minute? Is this something that you still focus on with having to be able to adjust and adapt so rapidly throughout the night while you program?
That's a good point. It's a set of tools that we use, and sometimes we can build according to beats per minute, and other times we have to throw that out the window. So I think it totally depends on that dance floor, that crowd, how they're reacting. And so let's say you were planning to go from a Billie Jean tempo to a Dynamite Taio Cruz tempo to Party Rock Anthem tempo. And in the middle of that, one of those songs doesn't work, then I think it's okay to not go that next level up, but find the next song that works, whatever that might be. And either you make a vocal transition or you do a slam mix rather than a beats per minute match. Whatever works. But the impatience you can feel, they're bored more quickly now. Right, and move out. I mean, I remember having a conversation with Scott Favor, and he's like, I play 45 seconds of any song. Which I was like, wow. I mean, even to me, I was like, I didn't want to admit like, oh, I'll play 2.5 minutes of a song.
maybe I should reevaluate how I'm doing it. I mean, everyone has their own style and things like that, you know, and I could just definitely see like mixing in and out of the best parts of every song. And some songs call for it, like listening to Dark Horse by Katy Perry is really popular right now, but I could only see like one portion of that song really something that I would want to mix into and then mix out of. Because the rest, all the energy kind of would just drain out of the floor, unless they're out there singing along to it.
Exactly. But the software that's available to us now is so cool because you can set multiple cue points. So for where we used to start a song at the beginning, now I have, I've got a cue point there, and it's tightened to a really good part of the beginning where there's a downbeat, and I skip all the cymbal roll or whatever. All those are gone. So all my songs are really tightly edited. And then maybe there's I always put a cue point at the hook. So if I'm coming out of a song that's really rocking and it has a cold ending, I can go right into the hook of the next song and just skip the first verse. I never would have done that 5-10 years ago, but now I find myself using that technology to allow me to just play the best portion of the song.
Yeah, well, and this is kind of as an aside because it's kind of apart from music, but you're bringing up technology. And I've heard people complain that, especially turntablists, that now that everything is computerized, and there's like auto mix features, a lot of things to make the mixing easier and all that sort of thing, that it just makes it lazy, and that we can like anybody can do it sort of thing. And I think that on that level of just doing basic mixes and having clean mixes and stuff like that, the technology does make that part easy. But I also think that it opens up a whole universe where, Jim, you could have like 4 or 5 players going and be able to design your own things, moving in and out of things simultaneously with ease, just by having multiple cue points preset and things like that, to be able to have more ability to even paint more creatively on a music canvas. Is that something that you experience or agree with?
Absolutely. I think that the technology makes our job easier, but our job has gotten harder because of this impatience and this open universe. You know, I've been building a music library for 25 years, and I still have every bride and groom that I work for has another 5 or 10 songs they want that I don't have. Right. So does it make it easier? Can you cheat by using the sync button? Yeah, but the technology also requires you to really know the music, to set these cue points, to tighten every song. I spend so much time preparing for an event now, tightening the songs, editing songs. I think that it's a double-edged sword. Does it make it easier? Yeah. Is it cheating? I don't think so, because you still have to have the talent to know what to play next and how to get into that next song.
Right. Well, and it opens up a whole world of possibilities if you're willing to look at it. Because if you can automate certain things that you had to mechanically do before, that opens up more potential for you to mechanically do more and exciting things, and creating more possibilities. Gosh, this could be, we could go on for hours and hours. This is so much fun, Jim. But it's time to jump in the way back and talk about some older music that is still working well on the dance floor. And especially as DJs age, sometimes it becomes more and more challenging. So I wanted to ask you about 3 songs from the 2000 decade, which I can't believe we're almost to 2015. We're almost mid-decade. It's mind-boggling. So what are 3 songs that are really working really well still for you in being popular on wedding dance floors from the 2000 to 2010 era?
Well, and you asked for 3, and of course what I did was make a list of 25.
Wow, your favorite 3, just so we don't have a laundry list.
And so I love to sift through, and because music changes and evolves, what might have worked a year ago doesn't work anymore. A song's used in a movie, and so it brings it back and makes it popular again, but then it fades.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So my go-tos, and these are kind of very trite, but Bye 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 in Sync, Crazy in Love, Beyonce, Cupid Shuffle, Hey Yeah, I Got a Feeling, Ignition, Low, Flo Rida, Sexy Back, Single Ladies, and then Yeah by Usher, which I think it will continue to be timeless. But those are kind of my go-to songs If I could only have a couple from the 2000s, those are the ones I'd reach for.
Great. And how about the 90s, if you were to pick? And if for our viewers that might be scribbling these down, read them a little slower.
Well, again, I didn't make a short list of 3. I couldn't limit myself to that. You have 3 obvious ones. You Can't Touch This, MC Hammer. Mm-hmm. Ice Ice Baby, Vanilla Ice.
Yep.
And Baby Got Back, Sir Mix-a-Lot. Mm-hmm. So those 3 are great. And then beyond that, This Is How We Do It, Montel Jordan, Wanna Be the Spice Girls. Getting jiggy with it, that's kind of hit or miss. It doesn't always work.
I was going to say, does that really work for you in Indianapolis? I mean, it's been miss a lot more for me than it's been hit.
Yeah, that's why it's not in the top 3. But there's a bunch of others. I'm Too Sexy, Good Vibrations, Always Be My Baby, Mariah Carey, which seems to have kind of gotten a whole new life. Mo Money, Mo Problems, Too Close Next. But those are probably the biggest ones. And then one of my favorite songs of all time, and this is another one of those that I listened to it at the radio station. I was like, this is going to be a smash. Smooth, Rob Thomas, and Santana.
Oh, and that one works for you.
Not always on a dance floor. With the right crowd, it will. And for cocktails or dinner, or if you're doing a corporate event, that's a great go-to song to get everybody tapping their foot and moving in their seats. So that's just one of those that's a great background music song.
Sure.
That's not boring or sleepy or like elevator music.
Right. Well, because that seems to be in that tempo range where it's kind of in between. It's not a slow song, but it's not a real dancey song. Yeah? No?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes, I agree. Absolutely.
Oh, this has been so exciting. So my last question for you, which is something that we ask everybody, especially with the on-demand world, is how do you handle requests? Because I'm finding even on nights where I used to measure it by, if the fewer requests that I'm getting, the better I'm doing in terms of like really programming, tuning in. Because people aren't taking time to think of songs for me to play because they're having too much fun just dancing to what I am playing.
That's true.
But I'm finding that even now, that even when I'm like, okay, I've got my floor full. I'm rotating the floor. I've got different age groups coming in and out. I've got a good flow. I've got a good groove going on for the night. I'm still getting bombarded with like lots and lots of requests that I may be able to play, may not, may work, but I want to be able to still keep the integrity of programming the night and not necessarily just be a slave to like kind of whatever's coming in, because that may mess up what I've got going. So all that being said, how do you handle requests?
The first thing I do is smile.
Yeah.
It's funny, I talked to a groom yesterday on the phone, and they were shopping for DJs. He said, we've talked to some guys who won't take requests. And I'm really kind of puzzled by that, because that's part of being a DJ, is you have to be able to be flexible and adapt to what happens at that moment.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do is talk to the client. And if that's a corporate client, if it's a bride and groom, if it's a bar and bat mitzvah parents, what are their expectations? What do they want this night to be, and what do they not want it to be? What songs do they want played? What style do they want played? What music do they want me to stay away from? So now when somebody comes up and requests the chicken dance, I can say, Aaron and John asked me not to play that tonight. What else can I get for you? And by giving them, you say no and, you're giving them another option.
Right.
And you're not refusing them outright. You're kind of getting them to think of a song that will work.
Yeah.
So I think requests are always going to be there. They'll always be something we have to deal with. The question is how we deal with them, and being honest. And I would never lie and say, I didn't bring that with me tonight. Just be honest and say, sometimes I'll even show them, here's the do not play list. They don't want it played. Can I get you something else?
Right.
And so you're always giving them another option. But when you know there's a song that doesn't work, sometimes it's best to be honest and say, how do you think, or just turn it around to them and say, if I play that, are you going to get a bunch of people to dance to it? Or how do you think that's going to work with this crowd? So you're kind of putting them in your shoes And sometimes it works. If they're inebriated, it doesn't work.
Right.
But
They just want what they want.
As you said, you're the final choice, and you're the one who has to give your clients the experience they want. So when in doubt, don't play something. But then other times, you'll get a request that you think isn't going to work, and it's huge.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's a guessing game constantly.
Yeah, it really is, and you do your best. But then that's a beautiful, gentle, and really incredibly polite way to handle requests that come in and engage in a conversation. Something of course I would expect from the perfect host, Jim. I tell you, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. I can't wait to create our special about dinner music and cocktail music. I think that would be really awesome to get into detail and just start kind of pulling different formats and different music apart and things like that to really inspire a lot of ideas for a lot of folks. Thank you so much for the generosity of your time and everything. Thanks, Jim.
Before we go, can I give you my pick hit of the week?
Oh, yes, please do.
There's a bunch of songs I was listening to. Selfie, have you heard that one?
Oh, I haven't yet.
Selfie is going to be a hit for about 2 seconds. There was a song way back, and this is another resource I always keep at my desk, the Billboard Book of Top 40 Hits. And Moon Unit Zappa had a song called Valley Girl.
Oh.
And basically it was just a drum machine with her talking California Valley Girl language.
Moon Unit? Yeah.
And that's what Selfie is. So Selfie's going to be a hit for about 2 seconds.
Okay.
But the All of Me Tiesto remix by John Legend, I think for some dance floors, if you're not playing it as a ballad, it could work. And then Turn Down for What, DJ Snake and Little John, I think is huge. Summer Calvin Harris, Red Lights Tiesto. There's a song called Water Fountain by Tune-Yards or Nicky Knack. I think that one could be big. And then what else? Disclosure is a band that I think is kind of right on the cusp of having a big hit. I bet they'll probably have one this year. And then just songs to listen to. Sam Smith, who was just on Saturday Night Live, has a new song called Stay With Me, which might be great for cocktails or dinner. And then Fall in Love by Fantogram is another cool new song, probably not for dance floors, but fun to listen to. So there's my one pick hit of the week.
Awesome. That's an awesome list. Now I've got lots of listening to do for the next 3 hours. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it, Jim. We'll talk to you again soon. And that's our show for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to share this with your friends. And also, if you want that list of the top 25 that Jim made for this show, we actually have it in a PDF format that you can download it right from the description right here on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week on the same bat station, the same bat channel. This is Jason Jones saying so long.